Hi YouTube and welcome back to the Outsiders channel. Tonight I'm actually going to be looking at Pathfinder again. I've just put the book there for a split second. I won't be needing to result really at looking at it, but it's just there for some show. Now the reason I've chosen Pathfinder is I have done a review on Pathfinder before, but this effectively tonight is going to be my opportunity to really go in depth with my findings of, if you like, playtesting it alongside the findings and feelings of my players. So you're looking at potentially 20 odd players who have got an absolute mountain of experience, plus myself. All these thoughts I'm going to share with you tonight are their thoughts. Now, on the whole, if I was to bring them all into the room right now and have them surround me, they would all agree we do love the system of Pathfinder. So I need to make that clear. Would I change my review score from before? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't put it up, and I certainly wouldn't put it down. So I think my score was bang on. It is an exceptional system, but then it would be, wouldn't it, when you think about it, because it was modelled off the old 3.5 system. And we all know that third era stuff was a big success, for lots of reasons. It came at the right time, it had an open gaming license, everything came just at the right moment, and it was just in general a very well written system with very few grey areas. So, Paizo took over effectively the rights of the game in many ways and developed what I would consider to be true D&D. I'm not going to get into semantics over why I call it that, but my view is that this is Dungeons and Dragons without a shadow of a doubt. So let's just twist it a little here. Let's start thinking about this in a little bit more depth, and let me explain where I'm going with this. So we've been extensively playing this game since its conception. I've been running campaigns in it since then. And I'm going to share now with you some of our thoughts. I'm not going to be talking, I've got to be honest about this. We're not going to share with you in this review. I'm not going into character class depth really. I'm not really going to talk about little differences. I don't want to do that. Other people have done it better, and I would say go and look at their videos. But what I want to do is I want to give you some thoughts that really go right at the heart of what I think are some of the issues that Pathfinder have. And I use the word issues in the lighter sense of the term, but every version of D&D, as Tsubo says so well, effectively has been a bit more power creep. And I think if you examine 3rd edition 3.5, then what you have is a continual rise of power creep. Now, power creep, for those that aren't familiar with it, is how much power the players potentially can draw upon, and potentially how quickly. Now, in this game, in this version, at first, when you first take a look at it, and you know, it's like anything, it takes time for the ripples of the game to come out, and that's why doing a post review really of many months of play like this one, and a long review, it's going to be my longest video ever, really proves very useful for those DMs about to run it or players in it. Because of the wealth of extra stuff the players get, I think this is D&D with the volume turned up. I think this is Dungeons and Dragons at about as high a level in terms of power creep as I think you can have without the system almost collapsing in on itself. Is it balanced? Sort of. It's very difficult to say balanced because it depends an awful lot on what you're using. Now, one of the first problems that we've encountered, this is really where we get right into the shell of it all, the engine of it, is the point-buy system. The system almost encourages you as a DM to use the point-buy system, and I, like probably many DMs, saw that in there and thought, that's brilliant, you know. All my players, I get around that old chestnut of a problem about all my players, you know, being equal, having the opportunity to, you know, start, you know, have the same sort of build and build the character that they want. And, you know, that all sounds in theory fantastic, but what it does is because the characters are so powerful to start with, it's the system encourages you to min-max. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, but it is a problem because you can have, if you took, for example, if I took 5 different types of people who come into the game for different reasons in my groups, put them in 5 locked rooms and said to them, design me a character off a 25 point buy from Pathfinder, I would say, other than some different bits of equipment, probably nearly all of them would come back with a 20 strength fighter. You could pretty much bet the con is going to be at least a 16. And you can sort of see where this is going, because that's the way the system encourages you to play. Now, I know some of you out there, that's not how you do it, and that's great. But for my groups, no, the reason why they build characters that way is because of the nature of the game. The mechanics of the game force you, in many ways, to think that way. And as I say, I'm a great believer that I don't think power gaming for that matter, or min-maxing, is actually necessarily a bad style of play, because those types of players are generally incredibly keen to come back to your table, and they generally want to get the best out of their characters, and in some ways that's not a bad thing. So I always feel you have to look at everything as subjectively as you can. But the reason I'm mentioning this point buy thing to start with is it creates a lot of problems within the game on top of all the mechanics that exist. So my opinion is, straight away, and we play test this out, and I think this works the best, is go back old school and roll up your stats. I don't really matter which way you go about doing it, as long as it's quite tough. And I mean that nicely. I mean, I personally think the best method is 4d6 7 times and just accept the bloody result, to be perfectly honest with you, and it gets round a lot of those issues. Yeah, the players might bitch and moan, but you know what? They'll enjoy the games more because everybody's on an equal foot. You might get one character that's lucky, one character that's not, but as long as you have a level that's playable, as long as you've got at least +3 or maybe +4 total bonuses, that's an acceptable character. With point buy, you can end up with an absolutely unbelievable character because of the way it works. So that's my opinion for the first point of where I'm going with this. So point buy is definitely out. The next thing that really comes in, and you see it more and more, particularly when we're talking about characters and the power creep that's in this game, you have now, they've changed the rules from previous editions, which was already mentioned on videos, but I don't think people realise the repercussions, which was the con. Your con score equals your drip down factor. So for example, if you've got 18 con, it means you can go to -18. Well, as soon as you hit -19, sorry, go down to -18. As soon as you hit -18, you are dead. So that is a massive improvement on the previous edition by a mile. And most players are not silly. You know, most players are going to have con as a good stat. And this game as well, a lot of starting characters, the hit points have improved. So for example, just one example, the rogue went from a D6 dice to a D8. So there's, you know, straight away, that's a third better if you think about it. So straight away, D8 dice. You get potentially, and I'm not talking about the APG book here, the Advanced Player's Guide at the moment, but you've got two basic options. You've got skill point or you've got a hit point. Anybody that takes a skill point, I'm sorry, no good players are going to take the skill points over a hit point. And that is a fundamental problem with the system, as I'm going to go into. And I mean this nicely, it's just if something is so good, most of the time players are going to take it. What you want, obviously, in any system is where there are multiple options, which is, I guess, where they're trying to go with the APG, and all of them are subjective. So you can think, oh, that's a good one, but that's a good one too. Oh, yeah, I would really wish I'd taken that rather than this. Or, oh, yeah, they're all good. That's not the case. Skill point, you can get around that easily with magic items. Hit point you can't. It's just awesome. So you can then have 8 hit points as a rogue. You've got an automatic bonus of 1. You can have a con of 12. So you've got another bonus of 1. So you can have 10 hit points to start with. You can drip down by 12 to 12 minus 12. That's a 22 point gap that you potentially got for hit points. Now you think about that for a split second. At first it sounds very player friendly. Yeah, I like that. That's really good. But the problem is that actually what it creates is a situation where very quickly that 22 becomes probably 32, 35 within a level or so. Potential drip down I'm talking about. That means you'll be on the range of even being hit by big criticals and dying very, very quickly. So the very quickly, those early levels where it should be very tentative and very, very frightful, it isn't, because characters don't perish the way they used to. Now you could say, well, that's not a bad thing, Sean. There's nothing wrong with that. Surely that's a good thing. But it isn't, because it becomes more and more like a computer game. And let me explain why. Because if you add on to this one of the spells that Pathfinder put into the book called Breath of Life, Breath of Life, very simply, if you go scrambling in your book if you haven't already seen it, very, very simply means that they've got a 1 round grace after the character dies to bring them back to negative hit points. So suddenly you've now got a much higher drip down, much more hit points, and we're only talking about the basics here, we're not even talking about all the extra things the character can do, and then you've got the ability to bring them back 1 round later. That's really too much, and the good players have seriously shown me just how silly that looks, you know, in play. It is daft. Particularly when you then add onto it ranged healing, which becomes quite funny because the cleric has to take, one of the feats in the book the cleric has to take is to signify which people get the healing, because otherwise everybody gets it, which again nullifies the whole point of it, so you end up having to take the feat. So these sort of factors in Pathfinder are the little things that need tweaking. Yeah, they're little points, but would make the system superb. So for my mind, where I'm going here, without getting too drawn out, I'd take away the drip down ability. So I would say, guys, I'd probably be even harsher because you get so much more power as a player. I'd probably say, you know what, whatever your con score is, halve that, and that is going to be a drip down. That's pretty tough because I mean even a 16 is only -8. But considering all the other advantages they get, it sort of makes sense and brings back a lot of the I'm playing a wizard, oh god, you know, I don't get hit thing, which doesn't exist there anymore. It really doesn't very quickly. So that I think really seriously I would definitely tweak, and I would advise any DM out there to seriously see where I'm going. You may have already experienced it yourself and not thought about it, and suddenly realise, wow, you know what, you're right, I hadn't thought of it in that way, and no wonder the games are going in this particular direction. So now we start looking at a couple of other factors about the game, and I'm going to talk a little bit now on the APG book. So obviously, as a system, generally 90%, 95% of it, love it. You know, what they've done to a lot of classes is a lot of fun, it's very good. What they've done with the way they want to balance the experience points is very, very good. But there's a little thing which is quite interesting in this, and it's really started coming out in gameplay, I think. One of the problems is, if you go for slow progression, right, and it just is very subtle, so bear with me on this, but think about it in terms of your group. You've got a mixed range of abilities in your group. Let's say that they're all fairly listening to each other and learning from each other, so nobody's got a really dud character, all fairly well thought through, the concepts are pretty strong, and they've made some pretty strong characters, yeah? But one of the characters is a little bit, shall we say, you know, the guy's gone for that classic sort of Shakespearean feel, he's put throwaway stats all over the place and not really cared about what his character does, and that's great, good for him. In this game, it really doesn't allow you to do that, because this is what I'm saying, it encourages you to min-max power game, because that character would become a soak, because he's going to go down all the time, he's going to need all the healing all the time, he's going to need bailing out all the time, so all these sort of wands and everything else all get pumped into this guy. So they become a real soak and a draw of your resources until eventually they perish. And it really shines through, and I've seen that so many times in the game. So it almost encourages, that guy then learns from that, he then goes off, and he then develops a stronger character the next time, and then min-maxes and then power games, and I understand that, and I see the reason why that happens. Now the APG book, I think personally is, and they do many wonderful books, Pathfinder, I'm going to say that straight out, a lot of the stuff they produce is seriously strong. I don't have an APG here, and there's a reason for that. Because I think it's rubbish, right? And I mean that sincerely, right? I love option books. I've always been a big fan of it. You know, I've loved all the Arcana style books. I love all that. This doesn't do anything, really. I mean, it just creates a nightmare, a plethora of problems, yeah, for a DM, right? Because you could understand if the book was total fluff and it was just little things, right? And they didn't really do too much one way or the other. It was lots of little options, which is the idea behind it. That would be fine. I could accept that, and that might well find its way into my games. But it doesn't. There are a number of things in there that are seriously problematic. I'm going to use the word broken, and I don't mean in a way where the game completely falls apart. I don't mean it like that. What I mean is that they are just so powerful that the same thing comes into it, which I'm going to explain. If you realise how powerful it is, and you see it in play, everybody will want to do it. Or whoever plays a character like will want a piece of that action. So let me give you some examples of some things that the APG have done which are problematic. So one good example is you've got traits that come in. Now the traits are meant to be quite minor, right? And that's great. But they're not. A number of the traits are significantly overpowered compared to the rest. So if you allow traits in, some of them are very, very seriously flawed. So a great example is Rich Parents. 900 starting gold over the opposing starting gold. I recently, to show in a friend's game what you could do, I took a sorcerer character. I've talked about sorcerers before. I took the Fey build for sorcerer. He was using the core book and the APG. I decided that use magic device is one of my favourite skills, and I ended up taking, I had 2 feats, being a human, I have 2 feats. I decided that I would take magical aptitude, which gives me a bonus of +2 on spellcraft and +2 on use magic device, and I do skill focus, use magic device. So that's +5. Yeah, +5 in total there. +4 because I get 1 for rank, 3 for a bonus, so that's +9. My charisma was 20, so I'm up to +14. Yeah. I took a 50 gold piece item, which was a pair of gloves that gives me a bonus on my spellcraft roll and my use magic device roll, so now up to 16s. I gained a bonus with a trait. I can't remember that. I think it's Seriously Curious. Gives you a bonus of +1. So I was up to 16, I think it is. There now, sort of 17. And then each time, if I use a wand and get one charge off, I get a bonus of +2. So I'm up to 19. So basically, on wands at first level, I ended up with a character that, as soon as he gets the first wand charge off successfully, could use that wand without ever failing. And I took the spell from the APG. I've got to remember it's gone out of my head for a split second and come back to me. Ill Omen. And now Ill Omen has no saving throw, no spell resistance, and effectively you use it against someone. You use the wand, and that enemy on their next attack roll or next saving throw roll 2 dice and take the worst one. On the next action it is. That's huge, and it's been proved absolutely disgusting. Spanking the opposition at every turn. 50 charges of that at first level. I didn't go out of my way to break the game. I made those quick decisions within minutes of picking up the APG book. It didn't take me very long to work that out. Players quickly realised as soon as they started looking at the APG, they found a lot of flaws too with it as well. So that book would never creep into one of my games because there's already enough creep in the game. So that I just wanted to touch on that because I think it's so fundamentally important to Pathfinder as a whole. Now I could go on and I could continually go on about the issues within the game, but there are little things that have started to come out that are seriously problematic. So I think that my suggestions are still the same, and I'm going to recap them. Take the point buyout. Use old school rules to build characters from, because the characters are powerful enough. Be tough on the drip down, because they don't need it. The players really seriously do not need it. Take the Breath of Life spell out of there. If you're going to have a slow progression experience points total, it will work, but all the characters need to be of a similar ilk. So when you do your rolling up, have a simple system. So as long as the character has a total +4 bonuses, no matter even if he just gets it in one stat or split over 4 stats, that is playable. And then suddenly you have a system, I believe, that has a bit of everything for all sorts. It's perfect for the old school gamers, it's great for the more modernist players. I think it really works. Now I'm a big fan of Pathfinder, and I'm going to stress that again through this. Do not get me wrong. The reasons I suggest these things are pure and simply love the game, but it needs to be tweaked because those issues are really ever present. And the guy that's running a game at the moment, we've been playing a character, has realised this. And he's also seen how tough these characters are very quickly. And I want to talk about, before I wrap it up, I was going to wrap it up and it just dawned on me again, I forgot one very key point. I'm so excited about this topic, was this. In old D&D, and I'm talking about 3.5 here, there was a thing, I called it the sweet spot. Now, without getting too much into this, the sweet spot essentially was a period of levels, round about 8th to 12th, roughly in 3.5, where the enemy you faced was serious challenges, you know, giants, all sorts of demons. Those demons in those challenge rates could seriously spank a party. And you always felt as a group that that was a tough challenge. And often those levels separated the real men from the boys or the girls from the ladies. Yeah, it really separated them. So ultimately the best characters would come through to the end. And I'm talking about the way they played, the way you put it across, whatever you do. The best would come through. And I love that about the game. It was that little thing I thought, wow, you know, that really, to me, was a beautiful spot. It was the perfect levels for it. The players didn't have quite enough power to cope easily. They had a few get-ups, but not too many, and it was just so beautifully pitched. Now in Pathfinder, that's changed. That sweet spot is so much further ahead. I mean, that sweet spot is probably levels 10 to 12. There's a little window, a tiny window now, because of all the extra power that's in there early on. And by the time that window comes up, it doesn't mean much, because the players have got far more get-outs than they previously had, and the sweet spot's almost gone. So I really have a big problem with that, and I don't think the challenge ratings in the game of the bestiaries are anywhere near where they should be. In some cases they're so wrong, in other cases they're bang on. And let me try and give you an example of something they tried to tweak and it didn't quite work. So again, bear with me, and I'm sorry I'm whispering, but it's such an exciting topic for me, this one. I've been trying to do this video for so long. You take undead. Now they've changed undead to a large degree, and one of the things they've tried to do is they've said, right, undead can now be critical to a large degree. Some undead, not all of them. That's fine, I don't mind that. And then they've said, well, instead of them being ethereal and therefore it's 50% mischance, which it used to be in the old days, it's just 50% less damage. Suddenly, actually, the players are dodging another bullet here, because rather than those encounters at those challenge ratings being seriously really tough, they're not. The clerics have got power to hit the undead from range. The undead are always going to take damage. It's so much easier for the players to remove them than the old days where you could have 3 attacks in a round and not hit once. That was the scary part of dealing with those guys. So that, again, to me, was wrong. It doesn't work in play. It just does not work. Those challenges do not stack up. And then you throw in the classic, right? For me, the funny one is this. And not everybody agrees with it, because it is strange. 3.5 grapple, to me, wasn't a problematic rule. None of my players found it difficult. We explained it well, and it worked very nicely. I didn't have a problem with it. It's an opposed roll. I think that makes sense. Now, in Pathfinder, if you really look at this logically, a lot of the challenges are high level, right? A lot of high level challenges. It's pointless rolling the grapple roll. I mean, I know you do it just in case you roll one and they fail, but come on. They can't fail to beat the players. Now, you might think, surely that's a balancing factor. But the truth is the group get well prepared for it. So they've got freedom of movement. They've got grief spells. Grapple means nothing in the end. So instead of it being a opposed roll meaning something, it doesn't mean a thing now. It just basically is pointless. Either the enemy can just do it automatically, or the players just get around it anyway. So what they were trying to achieve, I think they totally missed wide of the mark on it. So these are the little ripples that need to be tweaked. Now, if you said to me, how will I change those? It's simple. I've gone back to using, because that's the beautiful thing. That's what makes this game brilliant. It's portable. You can take whatever you like from any edition. I've gone back to using opposed rolls for grapple, and I like the old grapple rules. They seem to work very well for me. I don't see any issue with them. And as for undead, definitely missed chances. It just makes them more scary. And it balances out some of those challenge rates that were nullified. So there you have it. My in-depth look at Pathfinder in detail, under the bonnet, over many months of playtesting. Not just my own views, the views of many players with many years of experience. Some of them more so than me, would you believe? I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been interesting. If you've got any thoughts to share about it, it would be great to hear them. And I hope you do give this video the full look it deserves. Anyway, I've been Sean Connors. This has been Outsiders. This has been Pathfinder going right under the bonnet. Till the next time, take care of yourselves and happy gaming. Bye bye.